actually takes it away.
I'm good. Face the star.
Okay, stand by, please.
All right. Ready?
4, 3.
Join me today on GHC Coffee Break with Bud Jones. Get your coffee. We'll be right back.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
Hey, welcome to GHC Coffee Break. I'm very excited to have my guest here this morning. One of my husband's heroes. I don't know if you know that or not. Jeff
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. He says Bud Jones is one of my heroes. And actually, he is a local hometown hero, I think, in Tallapoosa, Georgia. I've known him vicariously through Jeff for many years, but got to know him more recently in the last 6 months, working with him on the West Georgia Museum as a board member now, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Well, we just have opened up reopened our expanded our Native American exhibit and had our opening back in October, which was or actually September 30th. So. Been very exciting to do that. Bud was a former high school biology teacher, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's right.
He is a writer, an illustrator, a taxidermist. In fact, I don't know what Bud doesn't do, actually. And I know he's very well thought of in our community. So. But I'm talking too much. I want you to do a lot of your talking and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in your history and writing and the Native American culture and what you've been doing.
Well, generally, it'd be hard to go over my whole history, but we were talking about the West Georgia Museum in Tallapoosa and that's how you and I got to meet. When I was a little boy, I always said I wanted to have a museum in Tallapoosa. And I've always been interested in nature. And so I remember one day I was walking down the sidewalk with my mother. I was just a little kid. And there was a dead blue jay on the sidewalk. I guess it was hit by a car or something. And I asked my mother, I said, do you think if I took that blue jay and covered it with glue that it would be preserved? And she said, no, I don't think that would work too good. And but I went on in high school when I was 16 years old. I took the correspondence course with the Northwestern School of Taxidermy in Omaha, Nebraska. And that's where a lot of boys and even girls tried that as a hobby, you know, and that's what I did as a hobby. And my hobby grew, and my brother Dorsey, we decided to go into business, and we did as a sideline. And then he dropped out, but I kept on. And even when I went to college, I would come home and collect birds and all sorts of animals for the museum I always wanted. And,
okay, so you started it way back when, even before you knew you were going to have a
that's
museum.
That's right. That's exactly right. And when I graduated from college, I had to go into the Army, and that was a couple of years that I didn't do anything toward, you know, museum because of that. But when I got out of the Army, I taught school, and I did taxidermy on the side. And then I taught, I believe I taught school 3 years. And my wife and I decided we'd move to Wyoming and work where I could work in a taxidermy shop out there. And so, excuse me, we moved to Wyoming, and I got a job in a taxidermy shop. And they had a television station there. It was in Casper, Wyoming. It was KSPR TV. And I had sung, I'm a folk singer, and so I sang on television in Atlanta in different spots. And then I was on Freddie Miller's talent show as a regular every Sunday afternoon.
I didn't see. I learned something new.
Well, and so while we were in Casper, Wyoming, I watched TV, and I told my wife, I said, back then that TV was all live. There were no canned stuff. And I told my wife, I said, I believe I could get on that television show. So I took my guitar and went up to the TV station and introduced myself. And there was a lady there named Helen McNair, and she talked to me. And I told her I was a folk singer and I'd like to get a program. And she said, well, let me hear you sing. So I sang 3 songs. And she said, wait just a minute. And she left and came back in about 5 minutes, and she said, I've got you a program. It's with Forsling Furniture Company. They're going to sponsor you. So I got a program on KSPR TV in Casper, Wyoming, and every Tuesday night. And I started singing folk songs. And I never did figure out whether they liked my singing the most or my accent. But, but I was way out of my element as far as accent goes, because the people in Wyoming, they are great people, but their accent wasn't like mine.
Mine either.
But we stayed in Casper a good while. And then my wife, I'd always promised her that we'd come back to Georgia when I learned what I wanted to learn. And we came back to Georgia, and I don't know how my former school principal found out about it, but we got in one morning about 2 o'clock, and we went to Jackie's mother and daddy's house, and they were so glad to see us, and we woke them up. And my mother-in-law came down, and I hugged her, and I didn't mean to, but I broke 2 ribs. And that put me in the doghouse for a while with my mother-in-law.
I guess so.
But anyway, the very next day, my school superintendent called, said, I heard you're back in town, and can you take over in biology? And I said, yeah. So I went back and taught in biology. And then in 1972, we got into taxidermy full-time.
Okay, and I believe you have or had, you used to do all the stuff for Longhorn, I believe, on their walls.
Yeah, when our taxidermy business grew, George McCarroll, who was president of the Longhorn Steakhouse, he had a restaurant down on Peachtree Street, the first one, and that winter we had, I don't remember the year, but we had a snowstorm, and a lot of people got stranded at George's restaurant, and they liked it so much that the Longhorn Steakhouse grew. And so he would come to our house, our shop, and say, Bud, we're opening another restaurant. Can you furnish the decor and things? And we did. And finally, about the 4th or 5th restaurant, he said, I'm just going to let y'all decorate all my restaurants. And we did. And we decorated, I guess, over 200 Longhorns before they sold out to Darden. And then Darden had their own decorators.
Oh, okay.
But we still do work for the Longhorn, for every restaurant, but it's not like it was.
Okay. That story when Jeff told me years ago, that always amazed me. You know, we went to Longhorn. He said, you know, Bud does all this. You know?
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the work that you've done. One of the most fascinating ones for me that I've gone to your shop in Tallapoosa, what is the bear? That huge. How big is that bear?
We took in a bear that a doctor from Birmingham killed in Kodiak Island, Alaska, and it's 10.5 feet high, tall, and 7.5 feet around. And it's the biggest bear I've ever seen and we've ever mounted.
And I've stood up next to, I have a picture on my phone, and I stood up next to that thing, and it's like, I was smiling, and somebody said, you need to, my husband, Jeff, said you needed to look like I was scared, and I said, no, because if that really was alive and that really was me standing, I would be standing next to that bear. I said, I'd have done, had a heart attack and been dead anyway. That thing's big.
Yeah, it's huge. You can't realize how big Alaskan brown bears are until you see one, either alive or standing by mounted.
Oh, it's big. What's the biggest thing you've ever mounted?
We mounted the life-size elephant for the Anniston, Alabama Museum of Natural History. We did their elephant.
That's huge.
That's the biggest animal that any taxidermist in North America can mount right now.
Now, didn't you also do a giraffe?
Oh yeah, we've done.
Now that's tall. It may not be big, but it's tall.
We did a 16-foot giraffe, and we've done hippos and rhinos and all the big animals.
And they're it's very fascinating. And I know y'all at the West Georgia Museum, they have a birds of prey exhibit that's really neat out there. I've been to, of course, I've been to the whole museum, but my stepdad, he really likes that particular exhibit. He's blind, but when we went through, he was able to describe. I think my mom took him, and he really likes that exhibit.
The bird, we call it the bird room.
The bird room.
The bird room. It's a big room just exclusively for birds of North America.
And it's a big size room, and there's lots of beautiful birds in there.
Yeah.
Eagles, hawks.
Yeah, well, it used to be our auditorium when we built the museum, and then when we expanded, we turned that into just a bird room by itself.
What year did y'all open the museum?
The museum was, well, in 1988, the city fathers called me and asked me would I be in charge of the cultural committee.
Okay.
And they were trying to get a committee to do things in our city that would draw people, the tourists, into the city. And I said, well, I would. I said, I don't know much about it, but I would. And finally one day, the banker, the local banker, Benny Talbert, called me in the bank and said, Bud, what can we do that would attract people to Tallapoosa? And it didn't take me long to think. I didn't even have to think. I said, Benny, we need a museum. Mm-hmm. And he lit up like a Christmas tree. It seemed like it struck him, and that's the thing, you know. And so I said, of course. He said, well, what all is it going to take? And I said, well, the first thing, we got to have a building. And he said, let me check on that. So he called me back in the bank about a month later. He said, I got the building. And so from there, the city asked me to give them 15 names of people that they could choose to have a board for the museum. And I gave them. And they chose 10 or 8 people, and they made me the chairman of the board. And we met in 1989, and we were talking. The board was, and I thought maybe it would take 2 or 3 years you know, to get the museum started, because we had been donated the old laundry building, about 5,000 square feet, and it had to be repaired and all the work done. And I figured 2 or 3 years. And one of the board members, Gordon Heath, said, let's open the 4th of July. And now this is in November of '89. And I said, the 4th of July, yeah. So we got busy. And on our board at the museum, we always have whoever's the mayor is on the board.
Okay.
And that really helped, because at the time, McKay Jabagel was the mayor, and he was a builder. And the city loaned us $30,000. And we got the building all ready, but we didn't know exactly how to do it. And we put an ad in the paper that anybody that wanted to donate stuff to the museum could do so.
And I'm going to hold you right there. We got to take a break.
All right.
But anybody that wanted an ad is going to donate. We'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break. Don't leave us.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you are really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
Welcome back to DHC Coffee Break. Bud, you were talking about getting donations. So you got the building, and you're planning on opening up on July 4th, just a few months down the road?
We put an ad in the paper, but we didn't have much response. And I remembered that the Anniston Museum told people they could donate stuff to the museum, but on loan, make it on loan. So we put another ad in the paper that people could loan stuff. Well, we were inundated with people bringing stuff in. And we got so much, we didn't know what to do. And so the museum board took a trip down to Pike County, Alabama. And I don't guess you've ever been down there, but they have the Pike County Historical Museum, and it is fabulous. It's on a lot of acreage, and there's probably 8 or 10 buildings.
Oh. No,
And in one of the buildings, they had little cubicle-like stores, maybe 10 feet wide, you know. This was the store in downtown Alabama in 1900.
Okay.
And, you know, they had little stores and little rooms that told the history of Pike County. And I told the board, I said, that's what we need to do. So we went back to our museum, and our mayor contractor built us little cubicle-like rooms, and now we've got Johnson's Shoe Shop. It was a shoe shop where when I was a kid, if you had a hole in the sole of your shoe, you could just take it in there and put new soles on them. And so we've got tools and stuff from Johnson's Shoe Shop. We've got the old dentist building. We've got the old doctor's office,
yeah.
And just all the way down the line. And that's part of our history. And then we've got glass cases where people have donated things, you know. And I told the museum, I said, we want history for our museum, but I said, if you want to get the school kids interested, you got to have something for them.
Yep.
And so when we started our museum, we said it's going to be a history museum and a natural history museum. And when you think about it, history and natural history are one, because the Indians, for example, had relied on natural history, the animals, for food, for clothing, for everything nearly, their weapons. And so I told the board, if you want the school kids to come, let's make some dinosaurs.
Yes, I love
So-
your dinosaur exhibit.
We got busy in my shop, and I told them we would make a dinosaur. And we first we made a Hadrosaurus, and it's I think it's about 15 feet long.
He's big.
And now imagine putting this in a 5,000 square foot building. And when we opened the museum on July the 4th of 1990. And Tallapoosa is a small town, 3,000 population. Well, we had over 2,000 people to come to that museum opening.
Wow.
And it was so, you couldn't even, I mean, a pickpocket in there would have had a heyday, because there's just so many people, we couldn't even tell we had an air conditioner. And it was overwhelming. And our museum grew and grew, and finally we knew we had to expand. And the Lions Club of Tallapoosa saved our lives. They said, we will buy the old museum building. And so they bought the old museum building, and we had donations, and we had a man there who is a contractor, Tony Ellis. He donated a lot of work for the building, and we built, had a metal building built, and it was, I would say, it would have cost probably $250,000, and we got it for a little over $100,000.
Wow.
And it's because people donated things. And so when we got that built, we had a special place for the dinosaurs, and I told the board before we moved in the new building, I'm going to build T-Rex.
And we have T-Rex.
So we got busy in my shop, and on February of 2000, I started building T-Rex. And again, I made the mistake. I thought, well, I'll have a couple of years to build this thing. Well, again, our board member, Gordon, he said, let's open July the 4th. Well, in February the 1st, I started on T-Rex. And when we decided July the 4th, I had to get busy. And I had a 30-foot T-Rex built on, I finished him on July the 2nd.
Oh, no.
And we rented a lowboy trailer, and we took T-Rex up to the museum, and the police blocked off traffic. We had cars going every which way looking at that dinosaur.
I bet.
And so we got some of our local prisoners, you know,
Yeah.
from the state, and they helped unload T-Rex, and we got him in the museum. And since then, I've built some more dinosaurs. I think we've got 10 dinosaurs of all shapes and sizes. And when school children come to the museum, that's the first diorama they go to.
Oh, I've been in there and in the back, and all of a sudden hear, you know, what is that?
Yeah,
that's the dinosaur.
The dinosaur, you just punch a button and he roars.
Well, and that, you know, that's, we only have about 5 minutes, but so, time flies when you're having fun. Okay, 4 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. But just in general, looking at the museum when you go in, it's so neat because, like you said, your rooms, and you have a doorbell on each room, and it tells a lot about
Right.
each room and what's in the room. There are 3 exhibits I want to talk about real quick, so we have about a minute per room. The Lithia room, the Lithia Hotel, the old Lithia Hotel. which is beautiful that y'all done. Real quick, tell just a little bit about the Lithia Hotel.
It was in the late 1800s, the largest wooden structure in the South. It had over 100 rooms, and we built a scale model of the Lithia Hotel.
And it is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
And they have a whole Lithia room. The original piano from the Lithia Hotel
Yeah.
is there. We're planning in December of having a
Concert.
concert. We also something that, and I just love the Lithia room. Something we recently added. Y'all had a July 4th. July 4th must have been a good day. The day everybody wants to do stuff. Y'all opened up the Creek Indian Village a few years ago, and but we added to it, and on September 30th you had a grand opening for some pottery that was donated.
Well, we had a whole Indian artifact, the largest Indian artifact collection in this area was donated to our museum, and we incorporated it into the Creek Indian exhibit, and it's really something to see.
Absolutely, and I got to do a lot of work with that, and I was very excited about that. Something that I can't leave without talking about our possum drop.
Tallapoosa has on the New Year's Eve the possum drop, and we have a mounted possum. It's not a live possum.
Yes, clear, people, not a live possum, so don't get PETA after us. No live possum.
And it's dropped from the tallest building in Tallapoosa, and it's really, last year we had over 6,000 people to the possum drop.
And we have actually created a very small exhibit there for the possum drop. Spencer is our possum's name.
Spencer's the name.
And so we have a mini Spencer and a mini display now of the possum drop. Coming soon will be a Rhubarb Jones exhibit to honor Rhubarb Jones. A lot of people in this area know of Rhubarb, of course.
He was a big radio personality in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He was from Tallapoosa.
From Tallapoosa, so we're working on that. Some of the other things I think that people will find interesting are the cars. So we're doing a lot of things at the West Georgia Museum in the history and the things that that you, and that's why I wanted you on our show, that have done. You know, I'm really have been very excited to get to know you and your family even better, and I really appreciate that you allowed me to be on the board.
Well, we're just so happy that you're on their board, and I appreciate the time you've given us to celebrate Tallapoosa and the West Georgia Museum and the possum drop.
Yes, you can't not miss the possum drop. We've had people come over. There was a guy that worked with Jeff for, one year, and he was from Puerto Rico, and he said, "The possum, what?" and again, we had to clarify it was not a live possum.
Right.
But thank you for joining me. Get your coffee. We'll be right back.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
All right, thank you for joining us on on GHC Coffee Break, West Georgia Museum in Tallapoosa. You can follow us on Facebook, West Georgia Museum. Please do be watching, because a lot of events will be coming up. It's something that I'm finding to be a very cherished memory for me. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And so West Georgia Museum, Tallapoosa, Georgia, come visit us. Have a good day. Until next time on GHC Coffee Break.